Welcome to the special Gold Derby Meet the Experts Film Production Design Roundtable. I'm News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm joined today by production designers Steve Saklad of the Lionsgate feature Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Arthur Max of Ridley Scott's Napoleon, Suzie Davies of Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, and Kevin Thompson of the Bradley Cooper biopic Maestro. Thank you for joining us and welcome. It's exciting to have what may be the greatest collection of production design talent ever to appear on the same Zoom screen.
I agree.
Yeah, where do we send the money?
We'll go talk about that later. The four of you here today are representing period films, some more period than others. And I'm wondered if you found that designing projects set in a different time is more challenging than stories that are more contemporary, or if it just depends. Steve, let's start with you.
It's funny because for me, the periodness is a wonderful crutch to lean on. When you're doing a contemporary movie, you're sort of really stuck without cheats. You have to go right to the core of the story, and there's no pretty drapes or pretty period choices that can sort of give you a leg up. So with a period movie, you have more tools to play with, and if you have the memory of the period, all the richer. But there is a sense that it can you can fall too much in love with the period details and lose the sort of core of the story you're trying to tell. So it's a plus and a minus.
Arthur, what about you?
Well, I've been struggling to get back to the present day for a very long time.
We'll trade.
But there's such a rich variety of period. I'm trying to do them all. And I find it very, informative just doing the research and the history. I'm more comfortable than I am in the future, for sure. I've done a few futuristic films. They have their challenges, but they're not a passion of mine. I was trained as an architect, and I love period architecture. It's the mother of all things, I think.
Yeah, you seem to be going back in time these days, back now to the 18th and 19th centuries. Yeah, Kevin, what about you?
I was just going to add to what was just said, in that my training is in architecture history, art history, and I think it's really fun to learn by going to another time period and research and see what clicks. It's a really fun technical challenge. I think that you just can't get too lost in the exact periodness of the period, because every year that is represented, it means that you go from that period back, So contemporary movies are quite often not considered for awards as much as period pieces, especially Academy Awards. And I think that contemporary pieces are really challenging to do and deserve more credit for designers. I think that you go through a lot of a similar kind of process, and it sometimes doesn't get considered in the same way as something that has an incredibly beautiful period location.
And I think you're right, Kevin, that period pieces are considered more awards worthy for some reason. And you, Suzie, I know Saltburn in particular wasn't set all that long ago, as you said, 2006, but still period piece.
Yeah, I think it's like the others have said. It's fascinating to do the research on period pieces. I've always felt that once you've done the research and you're prepped for a period piece, you sort of then throw it away because it needs to be led by the story, by the script, and sometimes you can get waylaid in making almost a documentary of the period. And to be quite honest, I've done some period films where it's great, where we throw that out of the window, and you just let yourself be inspired by your research rather than being strict about it, and that's quite freeing and really fun to play with. So on Mr. Turner, we had 1970s bed linen, but it worked. Not one, we didn't get a phone call, no one phoned in, but it just worked. It's about feeling your instincts and your gut.
Yeah.
Research is done, works. Yeah.
I think that's really well said. I couldn't agree more. It's when you get to the point where you know the period so well that you can throw it away and just use your instincts and follow the story. That's the point you want to get to.
Yeah.
Really well said.
High five.
Yeah.
Can I just say the other aspect of period work that I really enjoy is making things from scratch when you can't find anything, as Suzie was talking about, and working with craftsmen and the craftsmanship that goes into it. And I think that's an aspect of our work that's it's diminished over the period of my career, from when I began as an art department assistant. The crafts traditions were very, very strong, and the apprenticeship system was alive and well. And subsequently, I've seen it people want to sit at desks and work computers now, not stick their hands in buckets of plaster so much.
Yeah.
And mix paints. It's hard to find a painter who can match a color these days.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, in a way, our job is sort of closer to the crafts thing than all the people working underneath us, because in a way we are still handling swatches and pushing chips of color next to each other and touching things. And then our art directors and our, all the team underneath are working the computers, but I kind of stay as far away from the computers as I can for most of what my job is. Even my sketches are done old school on paper, and then I'll take an iPhone picture of it in order to turn it into a digital distribution, but it's still old school.
It's reassuring to know that what some crafts people do isn't just CGI, isn't just on a screen, that you're actually doing hands-on stuff.
I think the back of a fag packet drawing is still one of the most important tools we have. You're on a location in the rain, you've run out of battery on your phone or your iPad, and you've got to explain there and then what you're doing. Get a fag packet, scribble on it, and that is so important to do it there and then. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't smoke in the scout vans in America anymore.
Yeah. I'd be really stuck.
Well, I'm going to move to another question here. I wondered how each of you ensure authenticity, so your designs don't look like mere sets and props on camera. Do you have maybe some kind of visual test you run everything through? And was there ever a time when you remember something didn't quite meet your standards? Now it can be told. Let's go kind of in reverse order with you. Start with you, Kevin.
Well, I think it was authenticity was one of the first things that Bradley brought up, authenticity and intimacy. And I just have to echo a little bit of how I found it, which was we learned the periods, we learned as much as we could about these characters, and then we threw it away. We felt that we knew them, and we would make decisions based on the emotional point of the story or what was going on at the time, and we would trust our instincts about what felt authentic. And we didn't care if the exact detail was exact right for the year or something like that. We would be able to look at the broader aspect of it. So I'll just say that again, which I've already kind of said before. But
thank you. And how about you, Suzie?
So yeah, there are a couple of questions there, and one I'm going to respond to is the authenticity of the sets, not necessarily on Saltburn, but often I have this thing with my set decorator that we call the hairy hand, where we'll dress the set, and I like to sort of present my set to the director, during the shoot, so I sort of manipulate how they're going to see the set for the first time, and I make sure there's, wherever possible, there's not a lighting rig that has taken half the wall out and half the furniture out, so they see it as it's supposed to be for the first time, and ideally they get to rehearse in it and all those lovely indulgent episodes, but often it doesn't happen. But sometimes And it's psychological, really, is working out who owns that set, because I want the director and the actors to own it. There's a point when we give it to the shooting crew. It's no longer ours, it's someone else's. And that sort of passing on of what we've done, and then you let the sparks rip out the walls and everything. My set decorator and I have this hairy hand where sometimes we'll dress something really unusual that's completely wrong within the set to allow the director to move it, and then they own it, so they can go, I love all of this, but that tie on that curtain is wrong, you know.
So true.
It's gone right, perfect, there's now. And I probably shouldn't have said this on this format, because they'll look for the hairy hand now. But yeah, sometimes that can be quite manipulative, but I think it's about one of my worst things is not being able to hand over a set fully dressed to a director, because as much as we've plotted it in prep and they've seen the visuals, and they might have seen it on halfway finished, if we're on one of those crazy schedules and the first time they see it is the first time they're going to shoot on it, it has to look in its best light for them to see it. And I try very hard to try and factor that into the schedule. You know, can it get there, an hour earlier, or the day before, the night before, so we can dress. A bit like selling a house. You know, my set decorator would also, if she had a chance, she'd be boiling the coffee and making bread in the house, in the room, so that the director. But it's about instilling confidence in the director, so they don't need to worry about us. It's now theirs, and fill your boots. Yeah.
How about you, Arthur? How do you guard against something looking artificial or phony in a shot?
Well, for me, it's all about techniques of aging on different levels. There's nothing I like better than putting on a pair of heavy-duty gloves, grabbing a chain and bashing the set bits, door frames and dirty wax, smearing it all over the place and making everybody rub it off. And it's a lot of effort. I mean, you get the set to a certain level. If you take Susie's point about scheduling, and less you have the time to massage the set, to put it politely, and to make it look lived in and worn and weathered, especially in period where you could be dealing with hundreds of years of age, and the storytelling of the layers of age and the peeled off age and what's behind it, and on and on. And in this digital age of ours, that accommodation and being able to give it that much texture is disappearing.
Good point. Finally, you, Steve.
Yeah, for Margaret, there are a couple of instances of success and less success in terms of authenticity. One thing that we did that was very successful was the previous owners of the house in New Jersey. So we had a beautiful old grass cloth covering on the living room walls, and we carefully planned all of the previous owners' paintings that had hung on the walls and had discolored the parts of the walls, so that with those templates removed, we had a real feeling that there had been people in history before these people moved into the house. That was a success. I came in with a very short amount of prep left to go on the show, and so basically the first choice we made had to be the choice that we went with in almost every case. They had fallen in love with a synagogue that for a 1970s set Upper West Side congregation was patently wrong, because the building was built in 1996 and it was contemporary, and I knew Upper West Side synagogues in contemporary style didn't exist for our story. Had to let it go, praying that the edit of the movie wouldn't feature these stained glass windows from 1996, and of course there's huge beauty shots of the windows in the final movie. So you just have to sort of let it go and say, somewhere in the world there was a temple that looked like that in 1970. So we'll call it okay.
Fabulous. Well, we're going to wrap things there. Once again, our esteemed panelists have been Steve Saklad for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Arthur Max for Napoleon, Suzie Davies for Saltburn, and Kevin Thompson for Maestro. Best of luck to the four of you this coming award season, and thanks for joining us today at Gold Derby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you guys. That was fun.
You too. It was great. Thank you.
I get you guys.